From each happily ever after, every wish upon a star. Let's break down the movies that shaped who we are. From memory lane to now and everything in between. The most famous of films to the ones we've never seen. Decade by decade, all the times we laughed and cried. And with a little pixie dust, they will all take flight. Reliving the feelings, and we're trying our very best. And if they mean the same to you, please be our guest. So hop aboard, we would love to have you as we hang with a certain mouth, the whole gang too. If you love nostalgia stuff, we hope this does the trick. Thanks for joining us as we deep dive the magic.
Hi, and welcome back to the Deep Diving the Magic podcast. I'm KJ.
And I'm Jeffrey. And we are back today with the 47th Disney feature-length film from June 11th of 1960. It is The Sign of Zorro. Now, The Sign of Zorro is some recut episodes from the Zorro television show from the late 1950s made into a movie. It is live action, and it is in black and white. But before we dive too deep, would you like to start us off with a synopsis or any opening thoughts?
Sure. A masked vigilante battles a corrupt commandant by night while masquerading as an aristocrat by day.
Yeah. So I look it up. It's Commandante.
Oh, Commandante. Okay.
Commandante, yeah.
Well, I guess that would make sense as in another language.
Yep. So again, it's from the Zorro television series, and they recut it into a film, kind of like they had done with Davy Crockett earlier, when the one we watched earlier. But any opening thoughts or some facts or anything before we dive right in?
Well, it's basically still captivating audiences over 60 years later. So,
Well, I'm happy they think so.
well, I mean, I think it got better than the one that we watched. But yeah, I mean, the research I looked up was talking about how Zorro had become a cultural icon, and Disney's adaptation capitalized on the character's growing popularity, and that was basically after this, like you said, successful TV series.
Yeah. So it does take place in Spanish California of 1820. And ready to take the dive?
Sure.
All right. So we start off with the credits, and we see a masked Zorro riding his horse through the credits. The Zorro theme song is playing, and then we show up, and we're on a ship, and there's two men that are sword fight practicing on the ship. They're talking about how they're going to California and how things have changed there. It is Don Diego, and then his silent assistant, who was in Toby Tyler, but it's just like he doesn't talk in this film. He's just like the assistant. I call him the silent assistant a lot in this.
Yeah.
Don Diego has received a letter, and it's from his father, who's asking him to come back, to come home, and that's why they're going to California. Don Diego clearly has a past, but we don't learn that yet. But we do learn that he has decided that he's going to create a new character for himself, so no one will suspect him in California. He's going to become a scholar. He's a scholar, so no one's going to.
So he basically walks around as an unassuming, I guess, like nobleman, like I don't know.
But we don't know why yet.
Kind of like a frail person, because at one point he discusses how it kills him to be that way in front of his dad.
Yeah.
But I think he did it not wanting to put his dad in danger.
Which is something that we're going to learn. So it cuts to on land. They're waiting for a vehicle to pick them up, and then we see a man who is going to be the Commandante, but he is talking about how he's going to become the richest man in California. Like that just sets his ulterior motives up right away. But then instantly the man and his military they come to question Don Diego, but he plays his new character as a scholar, and he's just like a frail person, like you said, that's just there
Yeah.
on studies. He makes his way to his home, to the home of his father and all of his caretakers. His father is not doing well. And then his father continues to tell Don Diego of all the negative things that are happening due to the man that questioned him earlier, the Commandante. Don says that he will write a letter about it because he's a scholar now. So he's going to write a letter
Instead of
instead of like
actively
fighting,
doing
instead of
something
acting
about
on
it.
it, which upsets his father, that his father
Yeah.
is upset that he's not fighting. So that goes back to what you
Yeah.
were saying over
And
there.
that like touches on one of the two themes of justice versus corruption
Mhm.
in here, where his father's wanting him to take more of an active role, but he is trying to like protect his father and act like he doesn't.
And hide himself.
Yeah.
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 But then it cuts to in private. He's in a private room of the house and he's talking to his silent partner guy.
Mhm.
And he says that that he will be Zorro once again. And he cuts
Yep.
a Z into the book, which I guess if you didn't see the TV shows, it's kind of like an abrupt like I'm gonna be Zorro again. So that just sets that up. There's no, you know, character arc, nothing. Okay, this dude's gonna be Zorro. Uh, he tries on his mask. He tries on some dark clothing. He obtains his horse, and then we find out because the theme of this episode is it jumps around a bunch. I think it's just because they recut some TV episodes about this.
Yeah. At times it was kind of hard to follow, and then at times it was like dry, and then at times it was interesting. So I
Mhm.
mean,
Yeah. So we find out that someone is going to be hanged for treason. Um, so we see that Zorro sneaks out of his father's house by a secret room in the back. He climbs a wall and he sneaks back into town
mhm,
and he talks to an imprisoned Senor Torres, who's the guy who's going to be hanged.
mhm,
Um, he sneaks he sneaks into a room of the general, who the general is played by the character who played Mike Fink and Davy Crockett. But this guy's kind of like a bumbling, like your typical bumbling sidekick, always messing things up, but really not messing things up, but getting blamed for messing things up.
yeah,
But this guy, the Mike Fink guy, he doesn't have the keys. But then it cuts to that the Commandante has the keys and he's letting Torres out for his hanging.
mhm,
But then Zorro jumps in to make the save, and he releases Torres and he cuts his logo into the wall. Um, so that sets it up right from the start. Who the good guy is, who the bad guy is.
yeah.
Anything to say on that before we continue?
Mm, no.
All right, so there's a sword fight between Zorro and the bad guys, and something that I am going to say about this numerous times in this.
Mhm,
If these people know Don Diego at all, now they talked to Don Diego earlier in this film,
mhm,
potentially hours earlier in this film.
yeah.
There is no way that they don't know that this dude is Zorro because his mask stops here and he has the most identifiable mustache.
There was times where I had thought the same thing, and then at one point, I don't know if I convinced myself or if it was a thing, but I felt like when he had the mask on, I felt like his mustache was thinner and
No,
closer to his
no,
lip.
he's got this identifiable
But I
mustache.
think, like I said, I think I convinced myself that it was because then, like in the next scene, when I saw him again after he didn't have the mask on, I felt like his mustache was thicker,
No, um,
and I was like, "Is is his mustache thicker? Like, was this a goof? Like, or am I
because
imagining this?" So
his
I think,
mask comes
yeah,
down and hides the.
I think I might have imagined.
So he locks the bad guys up in the prisoner's cell. He sword fights with the Mike Fink sergeant guy. He
Yeah.
knocks him down a well, and he escapes. Um, the former prisoner thanks Zorro and says that he owes him his life. But then it cuts to that we see some
Which the former prisoner was really good friends with his dad.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we see a sign, like a wanted sign, looking for the capture of Zorro, and it's a reward of 1,000 pesos
Hmm.
in 1820. So that would be 27,400 pesos today,
Hmm.
or a whopping $1,300 in US dollars that he is out after him. Um, but then we see that the regime
But
is,
are you going to touch on the guy that he freed? Because they only wanted 500 pesos for him.
yeah.
And I was like, well, you already had this guy locked up, but you want less money for him than you
Than they
do
do Zorro.
Zorro.
Well, Zorro is the guy that let him out. But speaking of that guy, the next scene they lock up they publicly lock up his wife and his daughter, um, as a way to bait in to attract Zorro to come.
Yeah.
And then we see Don Diego, who's talking to his father, and his father says that he's going to ride against the Commandante. He can't take it anymore. His son is not going to do action, so he's going to do action.
Mhm.
But Don Diego, as the scholar that he is, he tries to stop him. But Diego's dad, he goes on to demand a visit with the Commandante. Um, but at the same time, Zorro comes to warn of an ambush. But then, unfortunately, his father does get shot um, before Zorro could do anything.
Mhm.
But he is able to like free the father without him getting shot. So he picks up the injured father and he rides off with his very recognizable mustache. They hide from the troops, and then so now we see now Zorro is talking to Don Diego's father. So he's talking to his own father, and even still, his father can't recognize Zorro with this very distinguishable mustache.
Yeah, I mean,
That's one powerful mask. It stops right here, and his mustache is just on full display.
well, I mean, Superman could wear glasses during the day as Clark Kent, and nobody knew who he was, and all he had to do was take his glasses.
Yeah, but this mustache.
And I
Um,
mean, how many of your friends have seen me without my glasses on and at first didn't recognize me and have made comments about it?
well, that's because of your mustache. So, um, so, um, so, Don Diego's father tells Zorro that he wishes that Zorro was his son, clearly, because he doesn't understand, he doesn't know who he is.
Well, the blue fairy comes and grants him his.
Oh yeah, the real boy. Um, so Zorro tends to the man's wounds. He convinces his silent partner to go get some medicine, but at the same time, the stubborn father leaves the cave to fight the Commandante, even though he is very gravely injured. The troops spot the injured man, um, and they try to take him back. But then Zorro shows up, uh, and they decide that they're going to challenge Zorro to a lancing match. Now these dudes have guns, but they're like, no, we're gonna lance you to death,
Yep,
even though they have guns. But hey, whatever. Um,
may as well. It's the times.
I guess they had guns though,
You got to save your ammo.
so they can keep your lance.
Yeah.
Um, so Zorro and his father are able to escape on horseback, but then they run into, and you might be able to touch on this, but this was kind of confusing. They like run into some diplomatic officials who knew Torres from earlier,
Hmm.
um, and says that they're going to be kept safe from the troops of Monterey or whatever.
Yes.
So go ahead.
So when Zorro released him, he told him to go find whoever that person was. And he said he will not harm you. He will keep you safe. So basically, the guy he freed turned himself in to the other guy, and the other guy is not corrupt and would give this guy a fair trial. And that's why he turned himself in, because he knew he was innocent and was going to get a fair trial, where the other guy was rigging his trial.
So then, because the next scene they're locked up again.
Yes,
Where
because
are they locked up?
I think they're locked back up where they were locked up before, but under this other guy's protection to make sure that,
Monterey,
yeah, he wasn't going to get hung or anything.
hanged.
Hanged. That he wasn't going to get hanged and that he was going to get a fair trial. And they
Okay.
were waiting on Judge such and such to come.
Yeah, they had to wait for the judge to show up.
But you see that the corruptness, they try to hinder that
Mhm.
plan too.
So the next
did I
scene,
answer your question?
yeah, because I was
Okay.
confused.
Yep.
I
Okay.
even told you I was confused while watching it because I was like, these guys escaped prison, and
I
then the
feel
next scene they're like letting themselves be locked back up.
I feel like I would have also been confused had I not recalled Zorro telling him, go find such and such because he'll keep you safe and he's not going to harm you.
So these guys are now locked up. Um, but they're excited about receiving a fair trial. But then we see that the Commandante is trying to sabotage the trial by
Mhm.
bringing in his own judge because the actual judge hadn't arrived.
Mhm.
So they're trying to like rush the trial with with his own judge. But Zorro sneaks in and everybody's fighting in the courthouse. They said that this isn't a courthouse, this is an execution chamber. But then Zorro sneaks in and he uses his sword in the fake judge's back, causing the judge to rule not guilty, which upset the Commandante, but everybody else cheered. And then like right afterwards, the Commandante like it goes to like see like what was behind the curtain. It was like a broomstick or something, wasn't it? Like a poker or something.
Yeah, something.
So they get him to whatever, not guilty. And then so I think this was the end of an episode of the TV show because the next episode or the next scene we see, everybody's just celebrating with this big tap dance number with these ladies in like the bar.
Common room. I
Yeah, they're
don't
just
really
like
know what you would call it.
they're like
Well, tavern,
tap
maybe.
dancing to like celebrate, but they're also kind of like alluring the men or whatever. So that this causes some guys to sword fight over the lady's attention, which causes one guy to kill another guy. But the Commandante offers him freedom if he will return a favor for him.
Yes, and ironically, this guy has a very, very distinct jawline.
But it's not as distinctive a mustache as Zorro's. But so
No, but he was going to use it to his benefit.
so he decides that he wants like he'll save this dude if he'll give him his freedom if he can return a favor.
Mm.
So the Commandante wants him to appear at a diplomat dinner dressed as Zorro, mustache, to rob the guests and mistreat the servants to ruin Zorro's name.
Mm-hmm.
So we cut to the dinner, and who's in attendance but Don Diego with his very recognizable mustache.
Mm-hmm.
But then the fake Zorro arrives, and he's just awful. He robs the guests. He threatens people. He's just not being Zorro.
Yeah.
Anything to say on that?
Well, I mean, he was just trying to tarnish
Zorro's name, yeah.
all the beliefs that the people had in this person.
So then Diego is able to sneak out, and then he's able to sneak back in as Zorro. But it was kind of funny because like the people on the outside thought it was the fake Zorro, and it was like this big like who's who type deal.
But the real Zorro is there.
Yes, yeah. At this point, he is back in as the real Zorro.
Well, the real Zorro was in the crowd and was like, "Well, that's not me."
Exactly. So yeah, Don Diego was in
Yeah.
the crowd. He snuck out to change, snuck back in. So then we see that the Commandante thinks that he's fencing with the fake Zorro, but really it's the actual Zorro.
And he's
And
like, "We got to make this look good."
and then the fake Zorro tries to escape, but Zorro's silent assistant friend won't let him. And then like the bumbling general, the Mike Fink guy, was like getting in the way and stuff. So this causes that the two Zorros, the real one and the fake one, end up having a sword fight, and then the imposter is unmasked, and they find out that he's the man who killed the woman earlier.
I thought he
And
killed a man.
well, that's what I meant. Yeah, sorry, he killed the man earlier. You're right. Which means that the Commandante and his men have some explaining to do themselves because this dude should have got arrested, and now he's this person.
Mhm.
But then everybody's getting back their stuff that was stolen, and then it comes time for Don Diego to get his stuff back, and we don't know where Don Diego is. So it's like, uh-oh, his cover's being blown. But then he appears from um underneath like a table. He pops up from underneath the table, and he's like, "Oh, I was just hiding from the fight," and he gets his stuff back.
He's such a frail.
Yep. But then we find out in the next scene that there's a headline that the fake Zorro
Mhm.
was shot and killed because he was trying to escape going to prison.
Yeah.
So that and then it cuts to like his funeral, or look, they're like getting ready his casket, but really the Commandante is just filling it with rocks because he once again faked this dude's death. Um, and he talks to the fugitive and he says that, he'll give him his freedom if he goes to a church and steals and robs from the church dressed as Zorro. So like completely ruining Zorro's name. The man has to agree because there's no other way around it. Um, so the fake Zorro rides to the church where he steals an ancient artifact and he cuts the sign of the Zorro. Um, and the people of the church try to stop
Doesn't
him.
look accurate.
Well, maybe one of their Z's was in cursive and one of their Z's was not.
Well, wouldn't the real Zorro make the same one over and over and over again?
Yeah, 3 slashes or whatever. The people of the church try to stop him. There's no way. But then we see Don Diego, who knew about the like the fake coffin. He's trying to come up with a plan to catch the Commandante. He's gonna like get like these like fake jewels, and you might be able to touch on this, but he like
Hmm.
was like he got like these like fake rubies and stuff, and he was gonna like make them known that they were out there and that maybe these are the ones that were stolen
Yeah.
by the figs or by
So
Zorro, but
what his plan was he was going to start planting these jewels around because if you were somebody that stole something specific and all of a sudden it started showing up, you're going to think, I dropped this.
yeah.
And then you're going to go check your stash to make sure that it's still there. So that was his plan because he knew at that point that the person that was responsible would obviously start looking for their own stuff.
So then we see like there's like another like celebration where the ladies are dancing for money, not like in a overly inappropriate way, but they were literally dancing for
That the
money.
kind of dancing they were doing was, I feel like, a specific Spanish style dance. Cause and it kills me that I don't know what it was, but they had the little,
Oh yeah, little like clappers.
yeah, and I feel like it was a specific,
Yeah.
whatever. But that's the kind of dance they were doing throughout the movie.
So then he like it's discovered that there's like a ruby that must be worth a fortune.
Hmm.
And then Diego thinks very loudly out loud um, that it could be stolen from the mission, and the man who took them could be someone in the room. Um,
But why does the mission have these things?
and that's not even what was stolen from the mission. The dude stole a crown.
Why is the crown at the mission?
So
Why are these riches at the
so then
Mm.
there's like a random guy who's been like the Commandante's like partner throughout all of this, who's like sitting there and he's getting all like nervous. He's like sweating.
Wasn't that the lawyer that ended up being the judge?
Yeah. So he's all
I
nervous.
really don't know what his role was. I
Yeah.
guess maybe he had some kind of degree in law. I don't know. And
Yeah.
that's why they were partners because they were going to figure out how to swindle everyone
Yeah, to be richest people
and
in
bend
California.
things, yeah, to their benefit, I guess.
Um, So then it cuts to the Commandante, who's going after the fugitive because his spot is blown and he thinks that the guy dropped the ball, which causes a sword fight. Um, oh yeah, but Diego and his silent partner see these two sword fighting, so they're like, "That's weird. This dude's back from the dead." So,
Yeah.
um, so then, but the fugitive ends up cutting the hand of the Commandante,
Hmm.
which in a what I think is a very stupid move has it causes an unmasked Don Diego to like sword fight the man in the in his honor. So that's like, uh-oh. Like if he shows off good sword skills,
Yeah.
everyone's gonna know who he is.
Beginner's luck.
But he fights very awkwardly.
You should have just said, my school had a fencing
Yeah,
class
yeah. So he
and I
fights.
was captain.
He fights very awkwardly. Clearly, all the skills were in the mask. Um, but
He
before,
would blow his cover.
yeah, exactly. So before it ends, though, the Commandante ends up shooting the fugitive. And then he discovers the crown with the crown of the jewels. So he had it the whole time. And then, but then the Commandante questions. Oh no, he gets questioned about the man being alive.
Yeah.
Commandante blames his troops. He blames the Mike Fink dude.
Yeah.
But then the Commandante asks Diego how a normal, awkward guy could fend off the fugitive because the fugitive was the best at sword fighting.
I'm telling you, he should have said, at my school, we had fencing and I was the captain.
Which
That's
which then causes the Commandante to put like a lot of pieces together that Homeboy is always in the right place at the right time,
yes.
and that he must be Zorro. It must
But
be the
Zorro
mustache.
also said,
Mustache.
how convenient for you to shoot the guy
Yeah.
because it would have been awkward had he been questioned why he was still alive, wouldn't it?
Well,
Because he's also put two and two together.
so the Commandante is like, "You're Zorro." But at the exact same time, we are told that the Viceroy is coming to the town. And have you ever heard the term Viceroy used in anything else that wasn't Star Wars? Yeah. So the one of the speed racers from Star Wars have pod racers have landed, and the Viceroy is coming to this town in 1820 in
Okay.
Spanish California. No, so the Viceroy is coming, um, but then um, the Commandante demands the generals to make the town look cheerful and make like empty the jails, make it look like it's like a happy place for the Viceroy. And they lock up Don Diego in Commandante's personal quarters. Anything to say on this before we talk about? Okay, so then the Viceroy shows up with his daughter, and he's all confused because he's been reading about how bad the town is and all the crime, but everybody seems to be happy, and the jails are empty. Um, but then the Commandante is like, "Well, I have a surprise for you. I'm going to show you a captured Zorro."
Mhm.
So then we see a masked Zorro, um, which is crazy because Don Diego wasn't masked when he got arrested. So we see a masked Zorro, and the Commandante is like, "Look, there should be a hanging tonight in the Viceroy's presence. Like we should hang this dude today." But then when they unmask the Zorro to prove that it's Don Diego, proving that the Commandante was right, the Viceroy is like, "Oh, I know this guy. He went to school with my son. Maybe they were on the same fencing team, and his daughter is friends with Don Diego." And
Mhm.
so it couldn't have been Don Diego, and Commandante must be playing a joke. And the Commandante is very stressed. He's like, "No, this dude is the real Zorro." And they Diego's like, "If you're pursuing this guy as hard as you're pursuing me, I feel bad for Zorro." So then Diego and the Viceroy have a conversation in private, which stress out the Commandante. But then when the Commandante comes back, um, he's like talking to this Zorro guy, about how it has to be like look at him. It's 100% him, but then they remove the Zorro mask and it's like somebody else that they had dressed up as Zorro to trick the I guess right to like show that it could be anybody under that mask. It's not just Don Diego, even though his mustache was perfect for it, which makes the Commandante look like a fool. So then the Commandante challenges Don Diego to a duel with like a perfect glove slap to the face, like very much stereotypical, which causes them to have a sword fight. And then Don Diego is very awkward during it because he doesn't want to blow his cover, so he's very just like defensive. A bunch of stuff gets broken. Um, and then in probably my favorite scene of the whole movie, the Commandante has like a sword to Diego's throat to admit that he's Zorro. And then all of a sudden, in a very unexpected turn of events, a masked Zorro comes running in or like riding in on a horse and throws a knife, causing the troops to then chase after this dude. And everybody's confused, or like Don Diego's confused because he's like, wait a second, I thought I was the Zorro. So, but he got lucky because he got out. And then the knife has like a letter on it that says, "Sorry, I missed your fiesta," from Zorro.
Mhm.
But then after that mass Zorro rides off, we realize that it was the silent mute assistant from earlier, who 100% didn't have the body type, but it worked out for them on that. Um, and then this causes the Commandante to get arrested. And then they put the bumbling fool general, the Mike Fink guy, in charge. He gets promoted, and Don Diego slash Zorro survives to fight another day, and that's the end.
Yeah.
So I would say this. I was confused. I was confused. I think that God,
I feel like had it been shot as a movie
I was just gonna say the same thing. Yeah,
and not as a TV series, it may have not been as confusing. Because
yeah,
I kind of wondered if maybe we were missing some of the episodes.
yeah. So that's what I wrote. Sometimes when they cut these TV episodes together, it's confusing.
Because I was going to ask you if you felt like we'd got them all
Probably not.
when we watched
I
this. Because
mean,
like how long did it go?
I don't know. Not it wasn't 7 hours long or anything.
No, but it was
So
a couple of years, wasn't it? It
yeah,
was like in 58 through
yeah.
60.
hmm It
So I
was just
mean,
it was just
surely
confusing.
we didn't get all the episodes to make all this clear, but
You got any
um
thoughts or any ratings or any of that stuff on it?
yeah, I mean, if you think about it, Zorro has influenced the heroes that we have today. Like mask vigilantes like Batman, your favorite. Um
Mustache.
yeah. The idea of a wealthy and secretive hero who uses his wit and skill to fight injustices traces directly back to Zorro. So, I mean,
It's true. But one has the
it's
bat symbol and one has the Z thing.
true.
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely impacted um the heroes that we have today. I'm sure DC and Marvel maybe took some inspiration from this guy. Um,
There's definitely some Zorro remakes down the line.
yes. Um, I don't know.
Did you rate this specific
Oh,
line of
hang on. I
Zorro?
did have some trivia.
Okay.
The Black Stallion Tornado, because he calls him Tornado in the movie, but Tornado.
Coronado Springs.
Yeah, Tornado. Became almost as famous as Zorro himself, which I did not know because I was like, okay. And that was I don't even know if we talked about him, to be honest.
No, he wrangled him up earlier,
Yeah, I
whatever.
don't really think we talked about him. Rating. What do you think IMDb rated it?
I don't know, it was 6.7. You're smiling over there. Did I get it?
6.9.
Oh.
6.9 out of 10.
And what did you rate it?
I think I gave it a 6. just because it was hard to follow. I feel like I would have, like, it was a good story, and I feel like I probably would have rated it higher had it been easier to follow.
So did this film
Because I mean, it
sticks?
was an hour and 30 minutes running time.
Mhm.
So we had to have been missing some key points that would have made it flow better, I feel like.
I mean, I was confused. Did this 6.9 make your
No.
list upon a star?
No,
So
it
then
did not.
what
It did not make my
what
list upon a star, unfortunately.
stars made your list upon a star?
So Sleeping Beauty, Dumbo, Lady and the Tramp, The Three Caballeros, The Shaggy Dog, Peter Pan, Alice in Wonderland, Fantasia, Toby, Tyler, or 10 Weeks with the Circus, and Saludos Amigos.
So this also did not make mine. It's just not for me. I was confused. The notes were confusing. The us talking about it was confusing. So my list upon a star is Peter Pan, Alice in Wonderland, Pinocchio, The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Sleeping Beauty, Lady and the Tramp, The Three Caballeros, Cinderella, and The Shaggy Dog. Well, our next film brings us a little bit later into 1960, and it is the final of the True Life Adventure Animal documentary series. We've made it to the last one,
Mhm.
and that is a film called The Jungle Cat. Now, where will this film fall on our rankings of all the True Life Adventure films?
Mm.
And more importantly, will these animals be tougher than the animals that we've watched so far? Tune in next time to find out. Again, we're on we have an email, which is deepdiveinthemagicpod@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. We would love to know if you knew Zorro's mustache was a giveaway. We are on Spotify.
Or if you thought that his mustache was thinner when he had the mask on.
So
I swear it was at one point.
So speaking of things that look thinner, we're also on YouTube and we're on Instagram and all that fun stuff. But
Are you
so
saying we look thinner on Instagram?
or YouTube, it's the mustache. So
Or YouTube?
let us know how things are going, and we would love to see you next time for the Jungle Cat.
Thanks for deep diving the magic.
Bye.
Bye.